Fight Society podcast. I'm your host, Damon Martin. Ultimate Fighter finale is just a few days away. We're going to welcome in one of the coaches from this season of The Ultimate Fighter, good friend of the show, Joseph Benavidez, is going to join us shortly to talk to us about his upcoming fight with Henry Cejudo, coaching on the show and everything else going on. Obviously, his hopes of eventually fighting Demetrious Johnson for a third time and much, much more. We're also going to talk to two-time Olympic gold medalist and potential MMA hopeful Kayla Harrison, who is just recently signed a contract with World Series of Fighting to do commentary and broadcasting with them and potentially look at the future of fighting. Obviously, Kayla also is a person who knows Ronda Rousey very well. Used to be roommates back in the day, so we'll talk to her about Ronda Rousey and a few other things. We're also going to talk to the man who was supposed to headline UFC 206, Anthony "Rumble" Johnson. He was getting ready to take on Daniel Cormier for the light heavyweight title. Unfortunately, injury subsided that fight from actually happening, so now Rumble is going to wait until Cormier comes back, but we're going to talk to him about that, and also his hopes of potentially taking a heavyweight fight in the interim. So a lot to get to today, a lot of guests. You're going to hear from them, mostly more them than me. But I do want to talk about one of the big stories that came out yesterday, which was the announcement of the Mixed Martial Arts Athletes Association, the MMAAA, that was announced yesterday with fighters like Tim Kennedy, George St. Pierre, Cain Velasquez, TJ Dillashaw, and Donald Cowboy Cerrone, as well as former Bellator CEO Bjorn Rebney. This is getting a lot of reaction online, and you know, during the press conference, I tweeted out a lot of the press conference during the 2-hour conference call to announce this thing. And listen, I think that the concept of a fighters union is great, but here's the reality. This isn't. I'm not going to rehash everything they said. Because I think a lot of what they're saying is on the money as far as what fighters deserve or what fighters should get or what fighters should fight for. They want to get a 50-50 split. I understand that. I mean, listen, it happens in all the other major sports, and I think obviously in boxing, the split is even more dramatically, in certain cases, more dramatically in favor of the boxer, but not always. I mean, it depends on who you're talking about. If you're Floyd Mayweather, the cut is much bigger. If you're, a different guy with a promoter, you're probably not getting nearly as much of a piece of the pie. But it depends on how you look at it. So they want a 50-50 split of the revenue. They want, a pension package, some sort of pension package or benefits package for fighters, meaning, health insurance, some sort of pension for after fighting is over, things like that. And they also want some sort of a settlement to, pay for, past wages and, to help take care of fighters that are no longer, in the UFC, things like that. Let me target that right away before I get to anything else. The settlement package, I have a high probability of that never happening. And the reason I say that is because where do you draw the line? I mean, who is involved in this? Somebody else brought this up on Twitter yesterday. I want to say it was a fighter. I can't remember who it was. But where do you draw the line? I mean, you could say a legend, like let's say a Ken Shamrock, who put a lot of his heart and soul into the UFC. He fought during a different era. He fought during the SEG era before Zuffa bought the company. When Zuffa bought the company, yes, he ended up having a couple of fights after that. But you could argue that, all the time he spent under the old regime, would that count? Would that not count? What about his fights in Elite XC or when he fought in Bellator or whatever? Are we going to count those against him and say that this guy deserves, a compensation for, all the years he's put into the ring? It's such murky waters with something like that. I mean, do you compensate a guy who was in the UFC for 3 fights? Do you compensate, a fighter, do you compensate everybody that's ever fought for UFC? Is there one giant settlement that gets split apart to, 2,000 fighters that used to fight for the UFC? It's just, to me, that's really murky. Now, maybe they have a grand plan. And that was one of the big things that Bjorn kept saying yesterday during the conference call. We have a plan. We're just not going to tell you what it is. We don't want to put all our cards on the table, which, again, maybe that's true. I don't know. Anytime you hear that, you're just like, that it sounds suspect. People have that natural instinct to not believe it when you don't want to tell us what's going on. Maybe they have a grand plan, so I'm not discounting that. But, like I said, right away, I think that's going to be murky waters with the whole settlement deal. And I'll say right now, I don't think it's ever going to happen. Maybe it will. Again, as stranger things have happened in this sport, but I just don't see that happening because you're really, really, really treading into murky waters as far as who gets it? What kind of money are we talking about? Are we talking about 20 years? Are we talking about 10 years? Are we talking about 5 years? Are we talking about the cost of the sale? I mean, what are we talking about here? So there's a lot to do with that I think has to be accounted for. The 50-50 split, listen, this is a battle that's going to be fought on a lot of fronts when it comes to this 50-50 split. I mean, do fighters deserve more than what they're getting? 100%. I've advocated for higher fighter pay for a long time, and I think that fighters should absolutely be getting paid more than they are. I think fighters are definitely underpaid, especially at the top level like the UFC, but there is a bargaining chip with that, because when you say a 50-50 split, you're trying to compare it to Major League Baseball, NBA, those sports like that. But one of the things that always gets lost here is the UFC, essentially, when they say it's the most valuable sports franchise of all time, they're comparing it to one sports franchise. They're saying the UFC is the most valuable sports franchise, but what that means is the UFC is more valuable than, let's say, the LA Dodgers or the LA Clippers when they sold, things like this. They're not as big as the NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball as a whole, not even remotely close. It's not even in the same ballpark. It's not even the same league. It's nowhere close to that. So you're basically comparing what the UFC is doing to what, let's say, the LA Dodgers would do or what the New York Yankees would do. Now, under the collective bargaining agreement with the Major League Baseball as a whole, yes, there is a 50-50 split of some sort with the players and the profits. But again, when you're talking about the dollars that are going into that, yes, a lot of baseball players are making, 10, 20, $30 million, but that's also revenue that's generated by licensing deals. It's generated by TV deals and things like that. Now, the UFC has that argument to say that if they get this new TV deal that they're talking about starting in 2019, that would be $450 million a year, which I don't think is going to happen either. To say half of that is going to go back to the fighters in some way, shape, or form, again, I just don't see it happening. But do the fighters deserve more? Yes, absolutely they deserve more. But again, you get back into that murky water of, but where do you separate that? Do you just say it's 50-50 across the board and say everybody gets that 50-50? Or are we going to say that Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, some of the champions of the organization, don't they deserve a bigger piece of the pie, considering they are bringing in the bigger share of the money? I mean, this is a star-driven sport. You can say the athletes do drive the sport 110%, but when you want to talk about the people that are actually drawing in the crowds, you can't just put 10 fighters out there and say they're fighting and people are going to watch, because we've already proven that doesn't happen. Now, the UFC as a brand name is big enough that they do draw in a certain amount of attention, but we've seen this throughout time. You can't just throw 10 fighters out there and expect it's going to get ratings on TV or expect people are going to plop down $60 on pay-per-view. It doesn't work that way. You have to give people an enticing matchup for them to want to watch, whether we're talking about Conor McGregor fighting or we're talking about Ronda Rousey fighting or we're talking about 3 title fights on the same card. Whatever the case may be, you've got to give people a reason to watch. It goes beyond the UFC, and that's where you separate the UFC from, let's say, Major League Baseball, because the Yankees are going to have a dedicated fan base regardless. They may stink. They may have a really bad year, but there's always going to be a certain percentage of fans that are going to come out and buy tickets to Yankees games. They're going to buy Yankees gear, that are going to go to the games, that are going to watch them on TV. You're going to have that dedicated fan base. Now, in the up years, let's say with like what the Cubs just did, they just got, huge ratings, and I'm sure their merchandising sale was through the roof, and tickets were astronomical compared to, let's say, like a decade ago when they weren't winning. Yes, but that's the difference between Major League Baseball and the UFC, is they have that dedicated fan base. Fighters have a fan base to a certain extent. There's going to be people who will always buy a Conor McGregor fight. There are going to be people who will always buy a John Jones fight. There are going to be people who will always buy a Ronda Rousey fight, but that doesn't mean they're going to buy every UFC card. And again, this is where the differences in the organizations and the sports come about. You can't necessarily compare the UFC to Major League Baseball because they are different. I've always said, and I've said for years, the UFC is much more closely relatable to boxing and to WWE. As much as people don't want to consider WWE a sport, and it's not it's not a sport, it's sports entertainment, but that setup, the way they have that setup for the WWE is much closer to the UFC than anything you're going to see with Major League Baseball or NBA. See, right away, you have to separate those two factors when you're talking about finances and money. Do the fighters deserve more? 100%. Will they get 50-50? I have a high probability of saying no, only because a couple of key factors. One, WME IMG has to recoup their loans for buying the UFC, and if they start giving away 50% of the profits, or 40% more of the profits, whatever the case may be, they're not going to make their financial goals of what they want. Can they afford to pay the fighters more than what they're paying them right now? 100%, especially if they get this new TV deal in place in 2 years and they make a lot of money off that. Of course, the fighters deserve more money. There's no doubt about that. But again, you're talking about the hierarchy. Conor McGregor probably deserves more money, but are we talking about the guy opening the prelims on Fight Pass? Does that guy deserve double the money what he's getting right now, triple the money he's getting right now? Wouldn't you argue that maybe we should pay the higher end people more than the guy who's just signed with the UFC his first fight? I mean, I think the minimum now is like 10 grand. That's a huge difference from what it was a few years ago, and that's way different than any other organization out there. That's far more than what they're getting paid in Bellator or World Series of Fighting or most boxing cards, to be honest. Like when you're the curtain jerker, you don't make a lot of money. This is the argument you're going to have with this association. A fighter's going to stand up for their rights and say, we all want 50-50, but are you willing to give up your piece of the pie if you're Conor McGregor and say, you know what, I'll take less so, the guy who opened on the Fight Pass prelims can make more. That's where you start. Again, this is where the whole thing kind of runs into a bit of a roadblock, because you're wondering, are those fighters going to be willing to give that up? Are fighters going to be willing to give up their piece of the pie so somebody else can get a piece of the pie? It's not Major League Baseball. It's not the NFL where, everyone's going to get a chunk, and in the NFL, even the league minimum at like $300,000 or whatever it is, $400,000, whatever it is still a pretty healthy living. That's not the case in MMA. It never has been and probably never will be, because the UFC doesn't generate the kind of revenue that the NFL does to justify paying a curtain jerker $300,000. It's just not going to happen. But do they deserve more? Does everybody deserve more across the board? 100%. I just don't know that the 50-50 split will ever work in MMA. Or if it does, will it work to the benefit of the fighters on the higher end of the scale versus the lower end of the scale? We're just saying a 50-50 split across the board, everyone gets 50-50, or are some of the higher end fighters going to deserve more versus the lower end fighter? This is where the argument gets really, really hard to get, and this is where you're going to have fighters who are not going to be willing to sign on for this. I mean, I know Conor McGregor has said he'd be willing to listen to the idea of a union in MMA, but ultimately, if that means his paycheck, right now, let's just say hypothetically Conor McGregor is making $20 million or $25 million for his next fight, or what he made, let's say, for Eddie Alvarez. He made $25 million. Okay, now, based on the 50-50 split, maybe he would have gotten $100 million, and that's great. You know what I mean? That's great. But with this new union, because we're going to split it, between everybody on the card, that goes down to, let's say, $75 million. Now, you can say to yourself, that's still a triple what he would have gotten otherwise. Absolutely, you're right. But is Conor McGregor willing to give up that extra $25 million if the UFC came to him and said, you know what, we're going to start giving you $100 million because that's what we believe you deserve. Just don't sign on with this union. And if he says, all right, that's where you're running into the problems, because they can still do that. The UFC can still pay some of the higher end people a lot more money, and they won't sign on. They may not sign on with this union. Now, that doesn't mean they won't, but I'm just saying these are the things that you have to think about and you have to start worrying about when this whole idea of an association or union comes up, because if they can't get the Conor McGregors of the world, they are going to run into a problem when it comes to this collective bargaining agreement that they want to reach with the UFC. Speaking of which, the third prong of what they want to do with this collective bargaining agreement is also reach benefits for the fighters, pensions, insurance, things like that. Now, I think that is a phenomenal idea, and I hope it happens because the fighters need to be protected. The fact that there's not a pension of some sort in place is sad, and it's really just terrible. I mean, when a legend who is a friend of mine, Mark Coleman, has to go on a GoFundMe page to pay for hip surgery for injuries that he sustained throughout his career. Whether we're talking about prior to the UFC, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying there should be some sort of a pension program set up to help take care of these guys that bled and gave their hearts and souls in the octagon for our entertainment. And when it's all said and done, we've got nothing left for them. They've got no safety net. They've got no, backup plan. Now, you could sit here and say, yeah, you financially have to save up and do those kind of things. I understand that, but there's got to be some, kind of inalienable rights that you get as a fighter, that if you step into the octagon for a minimum of, let's say, I mean, again, this is where you talk about the threshold, just what I was talking about with that whole settlement deal. Maybe you have a threshold and say, okay, we're going to have pension rights, but you have to have fought in the UFC for at least 20 fights or for at least, 15 fights, whatever the case may be. Because then, again, because there are going to be fighters who have fought in the UFC for 3 times and never came back. But if you're talking about a legend like Mark Coleman, who was a champion and fought, most of his career, a big part of his career in the UFC, that guy should never have to go on a GoFundMe page to pay for his hip surgery. I'm sorry, it should not happen. They should immediately foot the bill for that and say, here you go. You're good and taken care of. Your insurance is covering this. I know it's an expense and I know it's not going to be cheap, but I think you can do that. But again, you can set the threshold. I think that's fair. You can't just pay for everything, but you could pay for the guys who have been in the UFC for 20 fights and then down the road as they continue to have health problems or whatever the case may be to take care of them. When you talk about a pension as far as, giving them benefits after they're done, will they continue to receive money, things like that? I don't know. This is where you get into the murky water of employee versus independent contractor, things like that. But I do believe the fighters who have kind of given their hearts and souls to this sport do deserve something when it's all said and done. But again, you have to begin to question those thresholds. What is that going to be? Is it going to be a fight? Anybody who ever fought in the UFC? Is it going to be fighters who fought 10 times in the UFC? I mean, there's going to be a threshold there because you're going to start hemorrhaging money if you say everybody. Because a guy who fought 1 time in the UFC or 2 times in the UFC, we're going to say we're going to start paying for James Toney. Because James Toney fought 1 time in the UFC. I mean, again, this is all these murky waters come in. It's not as black and white as it appears to be. It's very gray. And that's the answers we didn't necessarily get yesterday during that conference call. And again, I understand they have to keep some of their cards close to the vest and they're not going to disclose everything, but it'll be interesting to see what happens. They got 5 very quality fighters on board for this association. I mean, George St. Pierre, obviously huge star. As much as he is a huge star, though, his leverage is a little bit less, in my opinion, because he's not fighting right now, and he hasn't fought for 3 years. If he was still the number 1 draw in the UFC, I think it would mean a lot more to his being a part of this than it does now, because this union is focused solely on the UFC. Let's say George really does become a free agent and ends up signing with Bellator. Is he still going to be spearheading a UFC union? I mean, that's, again, murky waters. So that one, Cain Velasquez has a fight coming up. He's on the board. TJ Dillashaw has a fight coming up. He's on the board. Tim Kennedy, obviously, has a fight next weekend. He's on the board. Donald Cowboy Cerrone has a fight next weekend. He's on the board. So these are quality guys they got on the board. But again, when you're talking about a union, or they're calling it an association, you have to talk about the grand scheme of things. Are they going to get 300 fighters on the roster willing to sign up, be a part of this association, give dues to this association, and then when it comes time to fight for the UFC the next time and they say, hey, we've got a fight to offer you, and you're a father, you got 2 kids, and you're making 30 and 30 a fight, $60,000 a fight, which is not peanuts, but it's also not, you're not getting rich off of this. But if you depend on fighting 3 times a year and to make, let's say $250,000, $300,000, which again isn't bad money, are you willing to sit out with your fellow fighters and say, you know what, I'm going to go on strike, I'm going to not take this, I'm not going to take these fights, and know that, you could be expendable, because there are fighters out there who will take that money, who will fight. Are you willing to sit out for your fellow fighters and sit on the sideline? That's where, again, you're going to run into these problems, because I truly do believe this is a good thing for the sport in the long run, but will it work? I don't know. Maybe it's just skepticism. Maybe it's just because I've been around the sport so long and I've seen things kind of come and go, not necessarily like this, but just, grand ideas that don't always work. And listen, I hope it works. I hope these guys get what they want, and I hope the fighters get what they deserve, because right now I don't believe the fighters are getting what they deserve at all. But I just wonder if this is going to be the ultimate answer. Maybe it will be. Maybe it will be. If you get 300 fighters willing to, step up and say, we're not going to fight until you give us our rights and give us our dues, then you're going to make a real bad headache for the UFC. But I just wonder if that is going to work, if that is going to happen, if people are willing to give up a paycheck, if people are willing to miss loan payments and miss mortgage payments because they're going to miss out on fighting for 3 months, 6 months, potentially, things like that. I don't know. Again, these are the questions I have that I'm curious about how it's going to play out. They got good people involved. You'll never hear me say a bad word about Tim Kennedy or Donald Cowboy Cerrone or Cain Velasquez, TJ Dillashaw, all above the board great people. But ultimately, will it pay off? I don't know. I'm not even to the point where I say I'm cautiously optimistic. This is a great announcement. This is a big deal and great for them. But will it play out? Will it be as grandiose as they hope it will be? I don't know. I don't know. And I heard a lot of reservations from people yesterday talking about Bjorn Rebney being involved. I heard that from numerous people. I heard it from Shannon Knapp, who I respect the hell out of, the president of Invicta. I heard it from King Mo, who has spoke out numerous times about this. He was not a big Bjorn Rebney fan. I'm curious about, Eddie Alvarez. How is he going to feel about this? A guy he went to battle with in court, now kind of representing UFC fighters. Is he going to be on board? I have a hard time believing that Eddie Alvarez is going to sign up and immediately jump at the chance to work with Bjorn Rebney again. So these are all questions that have yet to be answered. This is one day in. So again, we don't know what's going to happen next. But like I said, we'll see. We'll have to see. With that said, let's get to our first interview of the day. He is fighting Henry Cejudo this Saturday night at the Ultimate Fighter finale. Joseph Benavidez, we're going to talk to him about his fight with Henry Cejudo, about the season of the Ultimate Fighter, and getting that third fight with Demetrious Johnson. Joe, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, brother?
How's everything?
Really good, really good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Appreciate you taking time to chat, as always.
You know it, bro. I always look forward to it.
So, how's everything? Are you out in Colorado still?
Yeah, I'm out in Denver training.
I saw you're out there doing some stuff with Bang. I know I talked to Matt Brown last week. He said he added Bang to his camp as well, which I thought was an awesome move.
Yeah, I did. Could honestly help anybody, and everybody, and he loves it. So, the right move, man. It's awesome to see Matt.
Yeah,
they just started working.
Yeah, he was raving about him already. He said that's a good person to have in your camp, and obviously, I know you and TJ have been believers for a while, but it seems like the influence is already spreading.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it's contagious, like just meeting the guy and seeing his passion for like martial arts and making people better is crazy. Like he asked me yesterday, like he's like, "Has there been a time when I want to like train or do a class or something?" And I'm like, dude, it's the opposite. There's been times when you forced me to train. Like Dwayne will text me in the morning and be like, "Hey, what's your schedule look like today? You got time to hit mitts?" And I'll be like, "Oh, I'm busy all day, but 3 practices, I'll end at 6. And he's like, "Oh, cool, I got time at 9. And it's like 9 at night. So it's like there's always time for him, and he always just wants to make you better. So, I mean, like, that's what you look for in a coach, someone that just wants to work as hard as you and, has that care to make you better.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me kick things off before we start talking about movies and music and everything else that I'm sure we're going to talk about. But let me kick things off by asking...
who knows where he...
So I'm kind of curious. We're pretty much wrapped up now in the Ultimate Fighter season. I know, without giving away too many spoilers, your team did very well this year. As a whole, how would you say your experience was now that the show's aired and you've seen how you were portrayed, you saw the show went? How would you say your experience was on The Ultimate Fighter?
Dude, I honestly, it was one of the best experiences of my career, life, like everything. My career is my life, so I guess that makes sense. But yeah, man, it was just so awesome and rewarding. And when I first got kind of introduced to the deal and the format and everything, I didn't know how I'd love it. I was obviously like, man, I'm not going to be able to fight till December. Wanted to get a fight in before it. But when it's all over, it was something that I needed so bad that I didn't even know I needed. Like a lot of people do it as a job and like won't do it again. Like I needed this, like I think in my career, I needed to experience this. And like, I didn't even know I needed it till it was over and how much I could grow and experience and like the people I would meet and everything. And yeah, man, it was like gave me so much more to even get out of this sport that like I've loved and I've poured like, my heart and soul into for the last, it gave me even more to experience from it and get out of it and like look at it in a whole nother perspective that I never had before. So yeah, I enjoyed it, man. I was just super passionate about it. It honestly took over my life, for the 6 weeks that it happened. But, so it was challenging in that aspect, but also just like I said, so rewarding and just a very rich experience to get out of fighting, when, 11 years fighting for the titles, doing this, like it's one thing to train and fight, it's great every single time. But this, like I said, it gave me even more to pull out of this sport that I love. And, it was awesome, way to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious. We talked. I want to say maybe about midway through the season, maybe like 5-6 episodes in, and we talked about Henry Cejudo back then. I'm kind of curious as the entire season played out. You kind of had a certain notion of who Henry Cejudo was going into the show. Did your opinion of Henry change at all during the course of filming? Like when it was all over, did your opinion of him change, or did being around him for 6 weeks pretty much vindicate the way you already felt about him?
No, not only did it vindicate it, honestly, like I feel like I mean, I always respect him as an athlete, but I felt I lost respect for him going in. Like I was like, all right, whatever. I don't like the guy. Maybe I'll just stay not liking him. Maybe he'll be better. Like I don't know. I just feel like I lost like a little more respect for him and like absolutely vindicated things and stuff I already thought, and then just kind of like vindicated it more so, I guess, after the show. But, it's no big deal. Got to go through it, I got to look at him as an athlete and not necessarily for his character or his personality or his lack of character and personality. Like, I got to look at him as an athlete at the end of the day. It's all fun and on the show, and I realized I don't like the guy, and it's no one I'd ever, get along with or anything, but at this point, it's fight time, and since the show's ended, I've looked at him as an athlete and a person and another fighter that I got to go out there and beat.
Yeah. You don't really get to, when you're on the show as a coach, it's not like you're training with the guy or that you're actually, sitting there watching him train or teach or anything like that. I know when you were matched up, when you were rumored to fight him before and then he didn't take the fight and all that unfolded, then you saw him fight Demetrious Johnson and what happened. I mean, I guess I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but in a weird way, like, is Henry Cejudo on your level in terms of what he's done or what he's about to do in his fight career? Because a lot of people felt like he did get to that title shot a little too early without maybe necessarily proving himself. Yeah. But I'm just kind of curious, like, is he on your level? Is he in the same league or the same, you know what I mean? Like, is he in the same realm as where you are right now?
As far as things that we've accomplished in the sport, yeah, probably not. But I mean, because, when you think of the flyweight division, you think of me and Demetrious, and I'm honestly, being nice is I've been around longer than him in the sport, so there's that. But, he's done what he's done and only lost to the best guy, so, he's beaten guys. He's beaten, Formiga, not that it was a good fight. I don't think any of his fights are ever, he never wows anyone in any fight. You never watch a Henry Cejudo fight and you're like, oh, man, that was so awesome. Can't wait to see that guy fight again. But, he gets it done. He's a good athlete, and he knows how to compete. Beating Formiga, I would never say Formiga's not on my level because he's great, and, I was lucky to go out there and perform and fight him and finish him the way I did. But he beat him, and I would never say that guy's not on my level. That guy's a talented, veteran from a great team and everything. So he's beat him. He lost to the best pound-for-pound guy. That happens as well. So I guess that's remained to be seen. I would never say he's not on my level. I mean, he's an Olympic champion. He definitely did get the title, as soon as it was warranted. I feel they had to give it to him because they didn't know how it was going to go. We're always scarce on contenders in the division. So that's definitely fair to say. And I don't think he would hide from that fact either. But I think he even actually told me one time that he didn't fight me because it was smart or some crap like that. So yeah, I would never say that he's not on my level, but it's remained to be seen. My job's to go out there and I guess show that he's not on my level, which I try to do every time, go out and prove that I'm just better than the guy. I obviously think that every guy in there I have respect for them. I know they're good and they're there for a reason, but yeah, man, it's my job to go out there and, like I said, just prove that I'm the better guy.
Yeah. Is there anything in terms of what you've seen out of Henry? Because it's easy to point at his wrestling because he's an Olympic gold medalist. But is there anything about Henry and what you've seen in his fight career that impresses you? Because the reason I ask that question is because, as great as a wrestler as he is, that doesn't always translate into MMA. I mean, I saw Derek Brunson out wrestle Yoel Romero for 2 rounds, and Yoel Romero is an Olympic silver medalist. You know what I mean? So you can't always just judge by that. So is there anything about Henry that impresses you?
Yeah, to me, just his athleticism in general. Like, he's big for the division, so I think he's going to be strong, and he's just as athletic, like explosive and speed-wise, I feel, as anyone in the division. And, that athleticism is hard to handle, like, you don't become an Olympic being a great athlete. But to touch on what you said, also, like, I look at him as a great athlete, strong, explosive and all that, but not necessarily as a fighter do I look at his wrestling. I look at him as a fighter, and he's a great athlete. He can wrestle. He has great control and strength. But wrestling's not necessarily his whole game. When he fights, he has, pretty good, striking, and uses his wrestling kind of separate, where I think there's a handful of guys in the division that have better wrestling, have better takedowns than him in MMA. Like you said, it doesn't always translate when you're wrestling from a wrestling position and then go into striking and changing it up. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's guys in the division with better takedowns than him and, like, better, control and stop. Like, people I'd rather not have on top of me than Henry, and people with better takedowns. Like, there's Hayes, there's Borg has really fast shots. Tim Elliott is, takes everyone down that he fights. There's quite a few guys in there with better takedowns, but for him, I see him as an athlete, but obviously his wrestling's always there. He's going to resort to that, and especially when I'm better everywhere else.
Yeah. You mentioned this during the show, and it's a real concern. You kind of mess with Henry a little bit about his weight cuts and about him missing weight, because that has been, unfortunately. I mean, listen, it's been something he's had to go through, and he's had to go through some really rough weight cuts. I'm kind of curious. We've seen with these early weigh-ins now, a lot of guys who have missed weight in the past have been struggling with that. We saw it with Johnny Hendricks at 200. We saw it just recently with Kelvin Gastelum. The early weigh-ins, I think, are a great idea. Most people have been all on board for it because it gives you more time to rehydrate. But for some of the people that have struggled, it seems like maybe it's hurting them. So I am kind of curious. Are you worried about that going into your fight, that Henry will not be on weight for that early weigh-in?
I mean, dude, whether it's early or not, you always got to worry about Henry missing weight. One way or the other, these guys that are saying they're missing it because they're early or they're missing it because of this. Like, at the end of the day, they're missing weight, and it comes down to discipline. You know how much you have to weigh on this day, at what time. Like, it's your job to go out and do it. So, I'd worry about him missing weight if the weigh-ins weren't early, if he had a head start, if he had, everything. Like, I would worry about it. But, that's nothing I can control. That's on him. He'll pay the consequence. I think I will gain from the consequence of, will gain from it as far as, the percentage and stuff that you get. So, I guess, like I said, that's his problem. I mean, I got to fight the guy either way. I mean, it's great if he misses it and I get more money, it's just hard because that's not something you worry about because, like I said, it's the other guy's problem. I'm going to go in and do me regardless. I always make weight. And I feel good, doing it. So that's kind of my thing. The other stuff's out of my control. If it happens, it'll be, annoying, but he will kind of be doing the embarrassment and the, discipline and everything, like the lack of discipline and stuff, like that's on his name. So it doesn't really, I guess, affect me much, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You go into every fight expecting, the best guy in the world. You go into every fight expecting that you're fighting Demetrious Johnson or you're fighting Dominic Cruz or, whoever it is. Even if Henry Cejudo, doesn't have the same skill set as you or same skill level as you go into it prepared for that. But in your mind, when you visualize this fight, when you go through your routine or you go through your game planning with Dwayne, however you do it, do you see this being a pretty dominant performance? Because you've had a lot of dominant performances in your career, and I think the odds are definitely on your side in this one. Again, not being disrespectful to Henry, but do you feel like this could be a pretty dominant performance for you?
Yeah, always, man. That's what we shoot for every time. We shoot to, program me to be the best fighter I can be, to go out there to dominate the person I fight, regardless of their ranking and their credentials and everything. So, that's always the goal, and sometimes it goes our way, and we're able to dominate. Sometimes it's a close fight. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. But yeah, that's always the goal for sure. And looking at this fight, yeah, of course, man. I mean, I have 5 wins in a row now. I feel I'm getting better every time. making the necessary changes in my camp, like we talked about at the beginning with Dwayne, like the necessary things I have to do. So, yeah, I mean, that's always the goal, and I think Henry's a great opponent for it, just style-wise, to go out there and really shine, and showcase my skills.
Yeah. I'm curious, Joe. We talk about this all the time. I feel like, with your career, you've done so much, but it's like one of those things where I feel like in some way, shape, or form, because you are, going to be the when you think of the flyweight division, as you mentioned earlier, you think of yourself and Demetrious. In some way, shape, or form, you're always going to be attached to Demetrious because you guys are the two best guys in the division. I am kind of curious, without looking past this title fight, because I don't want to give away any spoilers of what's going on December 3rd, who he's fighting or what's happening with that fight, but I'm kind of curious if Demetrious comes out of that one, and that's not a guarantee, because I know who he's fighting. It's not going to be an easy matchup, but if he comes out of that, and you come out of the fight with Henry, he's going to be on the cusp of his of a record that he's talked about a lot. I'm sure you've heard it. I know you like Demetrious. 10 title defenses, the Anderson Silva record. Would there be a more poetic moment than for you to rematch Demetrious with that on the line? I mean, I'm just thinking about it like that. Like, I don't know. You know me with like movies and stuff. I think about the movie moment. I think that would be the perfect time for that rematch. Am I wrong? Am I wrong in thinking that?
Oh, dude, it would be amazing, honestly. For both parties, I think it'd be great. I think it'd only be right. The thing with me and DJ, like, people think it's so unheard of to get a third fight and a fourth fight and whatever, and like so much, but it's like, man, let us fight. We're two awesome world-class fighters, and every single fight's going to be good regardless. Like LaMotta and Sugar Ray Robinson fought like 6 times. Every fight is good. It's entertaining. Those are the two best guys in the division. Like, I guarantee every fight's going to be good. Our first fight was a split decision. The second fight, he caught me, and I felt the best I'd ever felt, going into that fight. Stuff happens. He's never knocked out a person with a one punch. I've never been finished, and, it was almost a coincidence, and not taking anything away from me, caught me on an opening. But every fight is going to be awesome. So, as long as we're both around, like, I'd love to fight him. Like, he's the only one I have I guess, besides my opponent now, Cejudo, who I want to fight, is like, he's the only guy I want to fight. He's the top guy. I'll do it as many times as it takes. And I know I can go out there and beat him any given night of it. So, I'm just ready to make it happen and be prepared for when hopefully it inevitably gets there.
Yeah. I think it says something, though, that so many people do talk about it and still chat about it and still ask you about it, because I think everyone wants to see it. I mean, I think that's a compliment. Yeah. The work you put in, everyone's like, we want to see it. We want to see that third fight. You don't hear that a lot of times. I don't know that I would, it's come up with a couple of times, but like when it happened to Miesha Tate, there was a lot of people saying, well, you did get finished twice, and, it's kind of tough, even though I actually thought she deserved that third fight with Ronda after what she did, in her couple of fights. But you're not in that case. Yes, you did get finished once, but the first fight, the argument could go that you won that fight, or at worst, it was a split decision, which is what happened. So, I mean, it's a little different scenario with you and DJ.
Yeah, and I think people know in the matter I got caught was kind of like, I mean, you just kind of got to take that off the board and have a short memory. He caught me. It's like I said, it's very coincidental in those moments. I feel when there's just bones and stuff flying around in the cage. It's very, everything's kind of flying around in the universe, and that happens. Like I said, there's a matter of fractions and seconds. The reason, how that happened. So yeah, man. I mean, I think it's great. People still talk about it and mention it. Like I said, they think of me and DJ in the flyweight division. I don't think anyone would argue about a fight again. I guarantee everyone would enjoy it because it'd be a great fight. So, my job is now just to get more people talking about it, to actually convince the bosses, the media, the fans, and everybody. That's kind of my job, is like, I don't believe when people say they deserve a title shot. Oh, I deserve it, or I deserve a money fight, or I deserve this. And it's like, you might deserve it, but you don't always get what you deserve. And, you don't deserve it really until you get it, because you didn't get it. So there's obviously some force out there, some person that doesn't think you deserve it, So I never really believe when people say they deserve a title shot. It's like, well, someone thinks you don't, and you're not getting it. So, you kind of don't always get what you deserve. So, my plan is I keep plugging away, and I'll get what I deserve, eventually.
Yeah, I always tell people they should strike that word "deserve" from their vocabulary. If you're an MMA fan, just strike it from your vocabulary because
Exactly.
it never happens. I mean, listen, I said it. Guys deserve shots, but it doesn't mean they're going to get it. So
Yeah.
I've tried to strike that from my vocabulary because
Yeah.
it just doesn't work in this sport.
Just a human in general. I mean, you don't always get what you deserve. I mean, like, the best things can happen to the crappiest people, and the best people in the world can have terrible lives and have tragedy after tragedy. Like, there's no order in this world, especially the world of MMA. There's no real order. There's no, hey, you got this many points and now you passed the level. Like, it's, like I said, it's all very coincidental and crazy. And, we've got to adjust. We got to adapt.
Yeah. Speaking of adaptation, you've, I mentioned obviously you're out in Colorado working with Dwayne, working with TJ, working with the guys out there. I know you work in Vegas as well. I know you work with Rob Follis. He was helping you out on the Ultimate Fighter this season, different things. But I am kind of curious. So much was made of when you left Team Alpha Male because again that's there's some I don't know I've never understood the fascination of people when they move teams or they change coaches because that's just part of the sport. I mean, it happens in pro sports all the time. But I am kind of curious.
It happens every fight camp.
without this is not taking a dig at your old team, but I am kind of curious. Like, how are you feeling right now going into this fight? Because you have made some changes, you have made some differences with this camp. How are you feeling as far as your training and your coaching going into this fight?
Oh, always awesome, man. I mean, like I said, it was just the exact change I needed. I've always, trained in Vegas, maintenance-wise, living there and visiting all the time. Me and my wife splitting time. So, it's all the little things that I needed, there's, to be 100%, and to kind of accomplish everything. I had training partners, I had athleticism, I have experience, but I feel I'm filling in the holes that I needed, the leadership, the coaches, Robert Follis and Dwayne. I mean, two of the best coaches I've ever worked with. Robert Drysdale I work with steadily, in Las Vegas as well. So just having that, and trying to train smarter and filling those holes I need. Like, I'm tough. I can fight. I'm athletic. That stuff's not going to go away. But, these technical holes and game planning and, just the mentality and stuff these coaches bring, I think, is that next, level that I need, especially at this point in my career, being 32. And I think even having 32 fights, it's kind of, my, like, gym wars and stuff are over. I know how to fight. I've fought everybody. It's not about that. It's about feeling good, fighting smart. And like I said, that's just the necessary holes that I have to change, especially at this point in my career. So I feel awesome, man. I've grown a ton with Robert Follis, and now I've been out here with Dwayne the last 8 to 10 weeks, I believe. So both guys will be cornering me. And, yeah, man, it's awesome. I've pretty much, like, which is cool, too, is I'm at the point also where I can make my own team. Like, I like Robert Follis. I like Drysdale. I work with Jimmy Gifford, my coach on the show, striking coach on the show, Eddie Baracco. Dwayne, the guy's here. But I'm not at a point where I'm like, I have to adjust to a team and I'm obligated to use this and that coaches in their system. I'm honestly kind of making my own system. I like those coaches, so I'm using them. Kind of made my own team. I have a whole team of flyweights out here. All handpicked, that I want to train with. And, I don't have to adjust to being like, oh, there's 50 guys in the room. Maybe I'm going to go with this new guy. Maybe I'm going to go with the guy who's fighting a whole nother guy in a different style. I am training and fighting and being coached by the people that I think I need to be coached by. So every round I have a flyweight and a partner, like I said, that was handpicked, for a reason. So it's pretty cool. Just like I kind of have my own team. I call us the Strange Little Men.
I like it. Well, they always say, the best, a lot of the best fighters in the world, they cater their camps to them. That's just part of the, look at, Floyd Mayweather, one of the greatest boxers of all time. He had his team, but when he was getting ready for a fight, it was kind of focused on him. And, that's, listen, that's it's weird to say because I'm not saying you're a selfish guy, but in this sport, you do have to kind of be selfish a little bit because at the end of the day, you're the only one stepping into the octagon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to be, especially, my thing is I never wanted to finish this journey and think I should have done something different or, when you think about something enough and, you don't do it, there's always going to be regret. I never wanted to be done and be like, hey, well, I should have done this or I should have done that. So, there's no secret move or secret this or secret that where everything's going to automatically be better. But you got to do obviously what think is going to give you the best chance. And for me, like, I think it's awesome, like I said, just kind of having my own, camp and focus around me, with Dwayne. TJ's always been an amazing partner and training partner. And I got like 5 other guys out here, and it's just us, training, day in and day out every day.
I love it. So, as always, we can't do an interview without me asking what are the latest picks in the Joe Benavidez, whether we're talking on Blu-ray, on TV, or we're talking on music, because you always got an eclectic mix. I like to hear what you're listening to and what you're watching.
Yeah. Well, you know what? As of late, I would honestly say, I've been more on the music kick in camp. It's like, I don't have a ton of time to go to the theater. Haven't been obviously super pumped about any movies coming out, so I'm not like running to the movies all the time. But also sometimes you just don't have when you're training, and you got to eat dinner and training late. So I watch my shows, I watch my docs and stuff. Haven't, like I said, rushed to the movies, but there's always time for music. I got long car rides in Denver, hour traffic jams. And, that's when we get going. And like every camp, I like to make like a mix of kind of what I've been listening to during that camp. So like, cause, for the workout rooms, you work out, you play the music. So during that fight week, I kind of like, these are all the things that had all the musicians and artists and songs that kind of had moments in my camp, on top of obviously some classics, some like staples in my like workout playlist. But if we're talking that on the playlist, the band I've been obsessed with the most probably during this camp, just for their energy and bizarreness in general, is Talking Heads.
Love Talking Heads. I mean, huge Talking Heads.
Dude, like always loved kind of their singles and their hits. And, like This Must Be the Place has always been like one of my favorite songs. Always loved everything, but discovering them more, like, for albums and just everything, just really their new era sound, and just like I said, just their strangeness in general. Like, I've been just jamming to them nonstop. If I had to put like a top 5 of my like camp so far, like Talking Heads have been definitely like most listened to. I had like a Van Morrison obsession there for a while, where I just listened to Astro Weeks and Beat and Fleece, the 2 albums, like back to back forever. But that was kind of more at the beginning of camp, where it was just chill, and loved both those albums. And then I'm on another guy called Francis and the Lights, which is a great, almost like a mix between Phil Collins and Talking Heads. He's special, and I saw him live, and I got obsessed with him. And then Phil Collins as well has been like speaking to me. Just his like crazy, like intense anger has been speaking to me also. So yeah, man, those are my main hits right now. There's another band, Charles Wright and the Watts 103rd Street Rhythm Band, like Express Yourself and a ton of other hits. Them musically have been my other thing to throw on, because it's just always just great music, like and vibes like all the time. So, but those have been my kicks. Any thoughts or concerns about any of those bands?
No complaints about any of those. I was just actually, as soon as you said that, I started digging through my Talking Heads collection, because I love Talking Heads. It's one of my favorite bands. I was actually driving last week, and we have an alternative station that plays a lot of just random stuff, and they're like, here's a twofer from the Talking Heads, and I was like so excited. I like cranked it up. I was like so excited to hear them playing on the radio, because they never, you don't really hear that on the radio too much. We have a great alternative station here that like plays all kinds of like random stuff, and like they were playing like a two for Talking Heads. I was super excited about that. So yeah, I love that. Nothing But Flowers, Once in a Lifetime, which I know is one of their big hits, but I mean, I love all their stuff. So that's never a bad choice by any means.
Yeah, that Remain in Light album has been just like, it's been so good. I've listened to that over and over. And then the Fear of Music album, like just all the way through, their music and energy is just like undeniable. It's incredible. Even if they're talking about the most random thing or about nothing, or you don't understand it, like I said, their music, the talent of their music, their sound is just like, it's undeniable. Like their passion that goes into it. And like when you listen to like interviews, with the lead singer, he just loves music. Like he just wants it to be out there, like the world music, the Latin music, the funk of the music, like everything he does. And I've been watching like a lot of performances of them too. And like I watched the whole Stop Making Sense concert movie of them the other day, and I highly recommend that. Like, that is one of the best concert movies like you can watch, and it's amazing. Like, I think it's like directed by like Jonathan Demme or whatever, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I like Phil Collins a lot too. I'm a huge Genesis fan as well. I love Genesis and stuff they did with him and Peter Gabriel. Like, both of them had great stuff with Genesis. I love both of those too. So.
Oh yeah, I've been jamming to Phil. Like I said, like more like I love all his songs, but like his kind of like angrier, like intent. Like his songs always build, which are great, But like, just for instance, like my favorite two I've just been going back and forth with are Man on the Corner, Genesis, and then I Don't Care Anymore. I think was him solo, and like those ones have just been like getting me all the time. But to mention it, now that we talked about both Talking Heads and Phil Collins, I'm telling you, this Francis and the Lights guy, he's a trip. Automatically like drawn to his strangeness when I saw him live. It was at a rap concert, and he opened up. So the crowd just didn't respect like his realness because he was just a crazy white dude just like hanging his balls out there on stage by himself. His name's Francis and the Lights, but it's just him. So he's just very strange. Like, dance is really weird. He's a mix, in my opinion, between Phil Collins and David Byrne.
Okay.
So I mean, that's all I should have to say. And he's pretty interesting. But I think I saw him live too, and I liked him a ton. So
I'll have to check that out.
Also went to a Kanye West concert, and he's a steady. I don't care what anyone says. Like, he's steady through my life all the time. Like, he has a point. Like, he has a song and a lyric for like every moment in like modern day life. So he's a steady run through like any, I feel like, gym and like workout mix. But I also saw his show in concert, and he's performed. It was an amazing concert.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'll always listen to Kanye. I haven't enjoyed him as much since he got Kardashian, but his music is still phenomenal. I don't necessarily need to hear his opinion on anything anymore because he's kind of gone out there, but his music is still spot on. That's the thing. Like, you can't deny how talented he is as a musician. You don't necessarily have to hear his thoughts on politics and life. Like, I don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, nobody you do really unless that's their job, but his job is to make music, and he does it great, and to perform in his concerts. Like, I've been to 2 now, and like, they're amazing. Also, I was digging the new Frank Ocean album as well. That was very nice.
Yeah.
And eclectic as well with the sound, and just different, like, abstract like stuff I'd never heard. So I like that as well.
Yeah, I've been listening.
You dig Frank or no?
I like Frank. I do like Frank. What I've been digging mostly lately, and it's just because, when he passed away, I just kind of got stuck on Leonard Cohen. I've been listening to a lot of Leonard Cohen because he passed away, and it just kind of reminded me. Like, I have a bunch of his albums. I just kind of, I listened to some of them here and there, but when he passed away, it just kind of like got in my head. So I've been listening to a lot of Leonard Cohen lately.
Crazy how that happens. Like, every time someone passes away, it's like, dang, we need to get everything we can out of it. You know what I mean? Like, they're gone now. And it's like, not that you wouldn't appreciate it before or after, but it's almost, if you can take anything out of someone passing away, it's that people and more, if you can take anything, obviously no one wants to pass away and lose somebody, but like, that's almost the thing that happens is people realize, like, how great these people, were, and like, oh, now that they're gone, their music's amazing, and it like, their art becomes more meaningful, I guess,
Yeah. With that being said, real quick before I let you go, I want to mention you're a big Kanye West fan. I am kind of curious. You probably know this song, but if not, I want to throw it out there to you. Do you know the song "This Way" with Dilated Peoples featuring Kanye West? Do you know that track?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
That's to this day is one of my favorite Kanye West tracks. It's not actually Kanye's song. It's Dilated Peoples, but that's one of my all-time favorite Kanye songs.
A white girl want to move back to Michigan. That one.
Yeah, I love that song.
That's a great one.
That's one that gets lost a little bit because it was before Kanye was super famous. So that was one of my favorite. That has some phenomenal lyrics in it as well. I like Dilated Peoples very much. They're big MMA guys. They're big MMA fans.
Song.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal song. That popped in my head when you said Kanye. It was the first song that popped in my head. I like all of Kanye's stuff, but I love that song he did with Dilated Peoples.
Just Just to Get that one, right?
Yeah, I think that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. And then,
Oh, dude, that's a great song. I love that song.
Yeah, good stuff. Good.
All his guests, you can make a whole list of just his guest verses on like other guys' songs. I mean, and they're just amazing too. So
yeah,
good stuff.
I still love him. I mean, like I said, his first album is still my favorite. I mean, I remember listening to that album when it first came out. When he first dropped his first album, I still love that album the most of any of them. You know, so
yeah, it's crazy. You know, when people, I understand how they say, oh, I love that rapper and that Kanye and that one, but it's just like, also like if he made 6 albums like that, like, you know, you're not like also evolving as an artist. So that's what's cool about it, is like you can look back at that and know just how different it was from like the 6th one and 5th one, you know. And I think that's what's cool about it too, what people don't realize is like, you know, he's not making the same albums, he's evolving like rap and music forward and just like himself. Where it's like, it's crazy where you can actually look at his discography and be like, I like this one because it's completely different than this one that I don't like. And, you know, that's what's cool, instead of like having 5 albums that are all the same and kind of like, oh, I kind of like all of them, you know?
Yeah. No, I liked 808. I liked 808.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I liked 808s and Heartbreaks when everyone was slamming that when it first came out, when he was singing or whatever. Like, I loved that too. Like, that's a completely different sound, but I loved it. You know what I mean? So.
Exactly, and that just goes to show it's like they're mad because they had a rapper making another, like trying to be an artist and like an actual different, you know, make different music, you know, but like that in itself is impressive that, you know, he can have that like scope of sound and everything. Like, yeah, that album's awesome, like especially like cohesively as a whole, like it's good. Like there's not those songs on there. I mean, there's a few where you just want to like jam them alone, but I feel that one's that also that work that just works solely together so well, you know.
Yeah. I'll throw one out at you to check out if you're ever in the mood for some hip hop, something different. I don't know if you watched the show Luke Cage on Netflix. I love that show. But there's an artist.
I heard it's awesome.
Yeah, there's an artist on there I discovered called Jidenna. It's Jiddenna. Check him out at some point if you get a chance. That was some really, really different hip hop. I really like that. I discovered him from that show, and I really enjoyed that. So check that out if you get time. Jidenna, yeah, Jiddenna, Jidenna. Something completely different.
Check it out.
Yeah, I never heard it before, and so check it out if you get a chance. You might like it. It was some different hip hop. I hadn't really heard that style before, but I really liked it. So.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah,
I always respect your recommendation. A man of your intelligence, I'd be dumb not to listen to it.
It's a trap now though, Joe, because the other night I was flipping around the channels and I saw IFC was on and Boogie Nights was on immediately. As soon as I see anything Paul Thomas Anderson, the first thing I think of is you, because I was like, I wonder if Joe's watching this, because Boogie Nights, I know that's like one of my favorite movies too. So
one of mine, top 5 for sure, if not like 3. Up there.
That movie still holds up too. It still holds up.
Oh, for sure. It's outstanding. It has everything a movie could want in it too.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's drama, there's violence, there's like laughter, there's the sex, there's the music, like it has everything.
Yeah.
It has everything you need.
It is. It's a great movie. Well, Joe, I always appreciate the time. Obviously, I want to wish you best of luck in the fight. Safe travels back home to Vegas. And, man, I can't wait. This is going to be a great fight. And like I said, I promise we talk about fighting a little bit, because I knew eventually we'd just talk about movies and music. But we'll catch up. We'll catch up after the fight. Like I always promise you're going to do this. We're just going to talk about movies and music, because we could do that for an entire hour and not even have to bother talking about MMA. So...
Oh, dude, we'll get it in. It's always a good time.
I appreciate it, brother. We will talk soon.
You know it, Damon. Thanks.
All right, man. Bye-bye. A big thank you, of course, to Joseph Benavidez for stopping by the show. Obviously, we are going to move right into our next interviews. As I said, you're not going to hear a lot from me, because we have a lot of interviews to get to today. We're going to move right into our next one with former UFC 206 headliner Anthony Rumble Johnson, who was supposed to fight Daniel Cormier on the card. Unfortunately, injury has prevented him from actually taking the fight. Now Anthony Johnson is kind of sitting and waiting. We're going to talk to him about the decision not to fight at UFC 206 with the offer to compete against Gegard Mousasi and an interim title. Also, we're going to talk to him about what comes next. Is he willing to fight someone else? Is he willing to fight at heavyweight, perhaps? So let's talk right now to the number 1 ranked light heavyweight contender in the world, Anthony Rumble Johnson.
What's good, man?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat with me today.
No problem, no problem.
So, man, crazy week for you. Obviously, you're getting ready to fight. You're ready to go. Next weekend's the date, and then kind of walk me through, man. How did you find out like what happened with DC?
Man, you know how it is. Word spread like like a disease. You know what I mean? Like the plague, and just it hit me, and I hit up my manager, and I was like, "Yo, I heard DC was hurt." I text Dana, but Dana didn't say nothing, and but he got back to me the next day. But by that time, it was already too late. You know what I mean? I had already got confirmed what it was, and my manager had texted me back after like an hour and said, "Yeah, he's out," and it was. I just see it as a blessing. You know, things happen whenever they're supposed to. I'm not stressing about it. You know what I mean? I did train hard, though. I trained really hard for this. I was probably in the best shape I've been in a long time. You know, I was in sick shape. Sick shape. You know, I felt amazing. I was pushing myself so hard in training, though. It was like I can tell my body was like, all right, man, you need a few days to let me recoup. But so that's why I say it's kind of a blessing, because I was pushing myself so hard, and I felt great, but I can tell it was slowly, I was reaching that, getting past my peaking point. You know what I mean? So when my time comes, it'll happen.
Yeah. Do you when you get that news, I mean, do you allow yourself to get angry for a minute? Do you have to get over it right away? I mean, nothing you can do about it. It's not like you can force him to fight or anything. So, I mean, how do you, how is the range of emotions in that kind of a moment?
It's a little crazy because, you're still in that fight mode. You're still in the focus. You're still like, it's just crazy, man. I guess, 1 second you can eat. 1 second you can't eat, you know what I'm saying, what you really want, and then like a split second later you can eat everything in the house, you know what I'm saying? So emotionally I was just like, should I eat this? Should I not? You know what I mean? And I was fine with it. It wasn't like he just pulled out just to be pulling out because he needed more time to prepare or something like that. The man was actually hurt, so I didn't have any ill will towards him because of that.
Yeah. Did you, I know you saw his message on Twitter. I know he's kind of apologized numerous times at this point, because he felt bad about everything that went happen. I mean, I don't know. Do you have me? Did you talk to him?
No, he called me. So much love to DC, man. Not many fighters will call you and say, I apologize. You know what I mean? DC was a real man and called me and apologized, and then he wrote me on Twitter. I haven't been signed into Twitter, and I really haven't been doing much social media, because I was so focused on this fight. But when I signed into Twitter, I saw his message to me, and that was mad respect, coming from him to even do that. Most fighters don't do that at all. They just let their managers and the media or whoever say whatever they want to say, as long as the word get out that they're not fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. So now I know after the fight got canceled, immediately, we heard rumors that, they wanted you to stay on the card if possible. We heard rumors that maybe Gegard Mousasi was going to accept the fight. I even heard rumors about an interim title fight. Walk me through, what's truth and what's fiction? Because, listen, I hear a lot of rumors. Doesn't mean any of them are true.
No, all of that was true. They offered me Gegard, and, nothing against Gegard, but I'm like, hey, fighting him means nothing. You know what I mean? He's an 85-pounder, former light heavyweight, fighter. I mean, he's good. He's tough. Some of my guys were like, oh, that's an easy fight, blah, blah, blah. And other people that I know were saying, that's an easy fight. You should take it. I'm like, yo, Gegard, he ain't no punk. You know what I mean? The man can fight, I think people don't realize how good he really is. But besides the point, it was pointless for me, because I'm like, all right, if I take the fight and become interim champ, as much smack I've been talking and DC been talking and saying that, what's the point of having an interim champ? You know what I'm saying? When the champ is healthy and, blah, blah. I look like a fool going out there fighting for an interim title after all that trash I talk, and then, if I go out there and fight him and I win, it means nothing. That's a fake champ. You know what I'm saying? That's really what the interim champ is. He's a fake champ. And if I lose, I start from scratch. I lose everything. So that was just a no-brainer. I ain't gonna take that chance. You know what I mean? Any smart fighter wouldn't take that chance. So I said I'm good, and I'll take my chance and wait on DC. But yeah, I got some things in mind. I might try and do though at different weight classes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was funny right after it happened. I was tweeting out, I was like, man, I wouldn't, I was like, I know AJ has fought a heavyweight. There's a couple heavyweight fights I wouldn't mind seeing you in. Like, I was immediately trying to play matchmaker,
Yeah, everybody was. I was too, I ain't gonna lie.
So the latest I've heard is that DC he's not going to be sidelined that long. I've heard it's going to be a couple months. I know he's deciding between having surgery, not having surgery, things like that. It's a torn groin muscle. I know it's painful, but it doesn't sound like he's going to be out for an extended period of time. Not like he tore an ACL and he's going to be out for a year. So did that play any part, knowing that you're not going to have to? Listen, it sucks that you're going to have to miss this fight, but also it's not like he's going to be out until July or August of next year either.
Yeah, to me, I just say it is me, this is giving me more time to prepare for him, and I know how painful a groin injury is because people don't know, but when I fought Glover, I had aggravated my groin like 2 weeks before. It was like if I moved left or if I moved right or even cough, it was hurting me. So I understand, and mine isn't as bad as DC's, but now I was still in pain. So, I'll be ready when the time comes, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm curious. This is probably a really difficult question to ask, probably because it hurts knowing that I'm going to ask this question, but I'm kind of curious. How is your confidence level going into that fight with DC? I know you were ready for the rematch. I think you look better than ever in your last couple of fights, but I'm just kind of curious. Where was your confidence level out in going in there and knocking out DC and winning that belt?
Sky high.
Sky high.
My confidence level was sky high. Yeah, I didn't. I was like, all right, he wrestled me. He's talking about he's gonna strike with me, so he made me train hard for everything, 110%. So I was on point, buddy. I was ready to go. So it's giving me more time now. So that's what it is, and he'll hopefully he heals up and fully recovers and comes back better and stronger. But coming back from a groin injury and wrestling the way that he does and being at the level that we're at, I think it's just going to be a little bit tougher for him.
Yeah. Well, I know you've had to go through your own battles in your career. And what's a few months? At the end of the day, if you get to win that title, it's all right, right? That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, it's worth it. Yeah, it's worth it, man. It's worth it for sure. But if all injuries suck. You want to go into a fight 100%. But with this sport, you can't always do that. So, DC felt like that he couldn't continue. You know what I'm saying? He did what was best for him.
Yeah, yeah. Now, to that point, if there is a positive, not to say there's a big positive here, but the positive is you do get better, you do get some time off, you do get the holidays, which I'm sure you're not complaining about too much. Get to enjoy Christmas a little bit. But how much time do you take off? Not knowing for certain when he's coming back. We've heard some dates and things like that, but do you get back into hard training? Do you wait until you get a date? Like, how do you approach it?
Well, I'm still in good shape. I added 10 pounds back on after, Thanksgiving weekend or whatever you want to call it. I went and saw my grandmother, had a good time, put a little weight back on. But, I haven't trained today, but I'm still going to go to the gym and, stay moving, man. I don't want to, I'm in shape. I might as well stay in pretty decent shape right now. You know what I mean? You just never know when you might get that phone call for an opportunity that you can't, resist. So I'm still going to be in the gym, man. But I'm not going to be killing myself. But believe me, I'll be putting in the time that I need to put in to make sure everything works for me.
Yeah. Now listen, no one, I wouldn't fault you one bit. I understand exactly where you're coming from with the Gegard Mousasi thing, the interim title, especially on a week's notice, all those different things. I agree with you, and I think more fighters should approach that with a smart. You can't just say yes to everything. You have to be smart about your career and do these things. But I am kind of curious. You said other opportunities. Are you resigned to waiting for DC, or if a great fight came up, meaning maybe a heavyweight fight, maybe a great opportunity came up, for a heavyweight fight, would you consider it, or are you?
Yeah, I'll fight heavyweight. If it's a fun fight, I definitely try it out. You know what I mean? I always said, I was gonna go up to heavyweight in the UFC before I retire anyway. You know what I'm saying? So I might as well possibly try it out if I get an opportunity.
Yeah,
and there's some good heavyweights out there. Those boys are big, so I'm definitely taking a big risk and a big chance with fighting them guys. So I look forward to the challenge.
Yeah. So you're not saying you have to sit and wait for DC. If the great opportunity came about, you're all about taking the fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
not. I mean, I'll say if I fight it, it has to be a heavyweight because being at 205 is just not worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Well, that was the other problem they ran into when DC got injured. You beat everyone below you. There's not a lot of guys that could have stepped up and fought you anyways at 205.
Yeah, I think the top. Who's ranked under me? Besides, I think I beat Bader, Glover, Gus.
Manoa.
Who else is after that?
Manoa
beat him. I don't know who else. I mean, OSP, he just lost to Manoa, so he's not in the picture right now. I mean, I really don't know who's. Nobody's left. You know what I mean? Except for me and DC. So when that time comes, man, I'll be ready. I'm still excited about fighting him.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing it's funny because the fight came together. The specter of John Jones is no longer hanging over the fight. We know he's out until July 2017 minimum, maybe longer. I'm not trying to dig on the guy. I'm just saying that specter is no longer hanging over. Now it's just down to you and DC. Now we just need to get you guys in the octagon so we can see this fight happen.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do believe it'll happen, but it's a little bit more time than we expected.
Yeah. Well, AJ, like I said, man, I'm bummed that, obviously if I'm bummed, I can only imagine how bummed you are that this fight's not happening. But like I said, I love the perspective you take. You didn't get emotional about it. Like I said, you've had such a great perspective about this whole thing. I know you respect DC. I know DC respects you. And, like I said, man, that's, the attitude you got to have. I guess at the end of the day, you can't change anything. So, slamming your fist on the desk and going crazy, I guess doesn't really accomplish anything, right?
It does nothing. It does nothing but hurt your hand when you do that. That's it, man. That's all.
Well, AJ, I appreciate the time as always, buddy. Enjoy Christmas, man. Get some good food. Enjoy the holidays, man. I look forward to chatting when this fight becomes official. Or, like I said, maybe there's a big heavyweight fight out there. You never know, but I look forward to seeing you back.
It might be. I mean, there's some people out there that want to fight me again. That's a heavyweight. So we'll see if we can make that happen.
I like it. Any names in particular? Anybody you're thinking about?
No, it's just, it's just, a couple of people.
Okay, I like it. Well, AJ, I appreciate the time, buddy. And like I said, man, have a good holiday.
All right, man, you too.
All right, talk to you soon.
All right, bro.
Bye-bye. When it comes to this sport, you can never fault a guy for. I said this in the interview. You can never fault a guy for not taking a fight on short notice. I never begrudged John Jones for not fighting Chael Sonnen on short notice after Dan Henderson fell out of UFC. Was it 151? Never begrudge a guy. Listen, I've said this a million times and I'll say it again now. We should celebrate when a guy or a girl is willing to step up on short notice and take a fight. If someone's willing to do that, yes, good job, awesome. Man, what a great save. What a great way to help save a card. But on the flip side, if they choose not to take that fight, we should never vilify them, ever. It's one thing if you got 6 weeks to prepare. I understand that. But when you have 2 weeks, a week, days, on some cases, to prepare for a fight, you should never begrudge them for not taking a fight. Anthony Johnson didn't want to fight Gegard Mousasi. He has a lot to lose and ultimately not a lot to gain. I don't blame him for that. Yeah, you're missing out on a paycheck, but that's his choice. If he can afford to do it, how are we to say, man, you're missing out on a paycheck? Listen, it's his right, and no one should give him a hard time for that. I think it's ridiculous that we've gotten to this notion of saying that, listen, we've kind of become accustomed to injuries in MMA as much as, that sucks, that we've kind of become accustomed to it. It has happened. But, think about it from the boxing realm. Floyd Mayweather was getting ready to fight Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao got injured a week and a half out, and they said, you know what, we're going to throw in Canelo Alvarez. You're going to fight him now instead. Do you think Floyd Mayweather would be like, all right, awesome, let's go, let's do this? No, they're not going to do that. I mean, when you got a lot of money on the line, you got, whatever the case may be, I mean, people are just rarely ever going to do that. I mean, typically in boxing, when a fighter falls out due to injury, the entire card gets canceled. That's not unusual. It's just a weird thing in MMA. We've gotten so accustomed to people being willing to step up on short notice that when they don't, it's somehow an insult, or we're going to question their, I don't know, whatever, question their gumption, question their bravery. No. And Anthony Johnson, man, that guy very well may be the baddest man on the planet. One punch will knock anybody out. Heavyweight, light heavyweight, doesn't matter. You're going to tell me that guy's afraid of somebody? Come on now. But it's a big opportunity. He was getting ready to fight for the title. This is a rematch. This is a rematch that he's wanted since losing to Daniel Cormier. You're going to tell me that he should risk all that for a chance that, maybe Gegard Mousasi loses, but maybe he catches him with a head kick and his toenail scratches his cornea and he's out for a year or something with a detached retina, something crazy like that. Crazier things have happened. You never know in this sport that can happen. Or, like I said, Gegard Mousasi, when he accepted Uriah Hall on short notice, probably didn't think Uriah Hall was going to spin kick and knock him out and knock him back from where he was, a year. So, again, yeah, I mean, for Gegard Mousasi, it may seem like a win-win. Okay, so let's say he loses to Anthony Johnson. Guess what? He's not a light heavyweight. He's a middleweight. He probably shouldn't have been in there to begin with. But maybe he goes out there and earns a crazy victory. And now guess what? Gegard Mousasi is about to fight Daniel Cormier for the real light heavyweight title. That's going to be a big fight for him. And maybe he's still competing in middleweight. Maybe he's still going to go out there and want to fight Michael Bisping at some point in the future. Think about how marketable that would be for Gegard Mousasi. So you have to look at every situation individually. And I don't think you can ever critique a fighter for not taking a fight on short notice. I just don't think you should do it and could do it. With that said, let's get to our final guest of the day, and I was very excited to have her on. Kayla Harrison, two-time Olympic gold medalist in judo. She is now working with World Series of Fighting as a broadcaster and eventually, hopefully, as a fighter. We're going to talk to her about that, her transition, the possibility of her competing, and also talk about Ronda Rousey, somebody she knows very well. So let's talk to the two-time Olympic gold medalist, Kayla Harrison. How is everything? Obviously, you are a very, very busy person these days. You never seem to stop moving.
Yeah, you can say that again. I'm getting to know hotel rooms quite well.
Do you remember what your home looks like? Like, do you remember your own bed? Like, is that still like a distant memory at this point?
I'm starting to miss it, I'll tell you that. But it's good. I like, I'm used to this life. I've been doing judo for 20 years now, so I'm used to living out of a suitcase. But I will say I have had a couple mix-ups where I've had to go down and ask the hotel what room I'm in because I've gone to the wrong room.
That's great. But I will say this, though. You're an Ohio girl, which I got to say makes me very proud because I'm an Ohio guy. So I always like to root for my Ohio people.
That's right. That's state the land.
I love it. So now I know you talk about travel. You have a big event coming up this weekend in Washington, D.C. as well. Can you tell me about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm actually going down to D.C. I'm teaching a clinic down there, but I'm also, so my friends, Roy and Dan Englert, who actually have been longtime supporters and sponsors of my judo career, Dan is a jewelry designer at the Intrepid Windle, and they have designed a piece for me, a necklace that rivals but does not exceed my medals. So it's this beautiful piece made in Japan, and they used the symbol of the cherry blossom and sakura as the theme, along with golden pearls to symbolize my Olympic success. So I'm looking forward to this big presentation Saturday night. It's going to be pretty exciting. I've never, I've received a lot of medals, but I've never received a necklace. So it's going to be a little bit different. And I'm not going to be wearing a gi. I'm going to be wearing a dress. So that'll be exciting. But I'm really looking forward to it.
See, a necklace, a tiara, you're like one step away from being a princess. I'm just saying. That's you're one step away.
I know. Give me a tiara, give me a wand. I'm just going to change this world one step at a time.
That's awesome, though. It's really cool. I mean, listen, I know, from talking to, a lot of Olympians over the years, that it can be a thankless profession at times. As much as people celebrate Olympians, it can be a thankless profession at times. So it's got to feel nice that people are honoring you and wanting to show the appreciation for the hard work you put in.
Absolutely. For me, especially with Dan and Roy, it's, Dan, who designs the piece, is not really, he doesn't do judo. He doesn't, he loves Roy and he loves judo because of Roy. And one thing that's really amazing to me is he's saying, I'm giving you this piece not because of your accomplishments, but because of who you are and how you bring joy. And to me, that is such an amazing honor and one that I have never really received. So the fact that I'm going down there and I'm going to be receiving this necklace to represent everything that I've sacrificed and everything I've done is amazing. I'm so excited about it. But more than anything, I've had a lot of fun the last couple of months. It's been a whirlwind. It's been amazing, and I'm just soaking it all in one step at a time.
I love it. I love it. So let me ask you, Kayla, kind of switch into the MMA world, because everyone knows, of course, she signed with World Series of Fighting, kind of in a dual role in a way. You're going to be doing kind of a brand ambassador and then the possibility of fighting. I know you haven't fully made that decision, but kind of walk me through the decision of, working with them and how it's been so far, because I know you've been a very popular person since you signed that contract.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be working with World Series of Fighting. They are a great company. I think that they treat their fighters well. I think that they see the big picture where, I was approached by a lot of companies to, when are you going to fight? Let's fight. Let's get you on a card. Let's do this. Let's do that. And the World Series really approached it and said, we want you to be a part of our family. We want you to grow with us. And here's an opportunity for me to sort of dip my toe into the MMA world, get to know it, and start training and figure out if it's something that I want to do inside the cage or maybe just outside the cage, help commentate, help broadcasting, and bring in a new level of professionalism to that. So we'll see. It's exciting. I'm really excited about this partnership. I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's going to be nothing but good things. And it's a much bigger picture than just stepping into a cage and fighting for a living. So That is something I'm really excited about. As an athlete, we know that we have a shelf life. Our careers are only as good as our bodies are good. And for me, one thing that I'm really trying to keep in consideration is the fact that I'm not going to be 26 forever. I'm not going to be a young, healthy, viable athlete forever. And I want to take steps to secure my future in the long term. So World Series of Fighting has been really gracious about that and is willing to work with me.
Yeah. Now you are, a two-time Olympic champion in judo. So athletics, that clearly is, I won't say comes easy to you, but it's something you've worked your entire life for. It's something you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So how excited, nervous? Where is your head at in the broadcasting side? Because I know that's a whole different world.
Yeah. No, I'm excited about it. It's definitely a new challenge. I can talk about myself until I'm blue in the face, but to have to talk about other people and to be on the other side of the mic is going to be really fun for me. It's going to be a new challenge, but I'm a little bit nervous just because my first gig just happens to be at, Madison Square Garden live on NBC on New Year's Eve. So I don't know if it could get much bigger than that. So that makes me a little bit nervous, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think I bring, a little bit different of a voice to it, just because I have been a fighter my whole life. I do have a pedigree in that sense, and a lot of commentators in MMA, especially women commentators, I don't feel like have that experience. So I think it's going to be good for me. It's going to be good for the sport and going to help take it to the next level.
Yeah. Well, I think people like yourself getting involved, and I know Miesha Tate, now that she's retired, she's expressed an interest in broadcasting. I think it's important that we have those women, the female voices in our sport that have that experience, because I don't think there's nearly enough women involved in broadcasting in the MMA side. And I think it's exciting that people like yourself and Miesha are going to kind of give us that voice.
Absolutely, and I agree. I think it's really important, especially, as MMA branches out and really wants to draw in the women crowd and the female fan. I think it's going to be important that they see women who were successful in the sport or in MMA, in the mixed martial arts field, who kind of can show them what it's like and say, oh, look, here's a woman who's accomplished, who's done this, but can also talk about it in a very poised manner. So I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah. So I know your approach to MMA right now is kind of wait and see. You're kind of feeling things out, seeing how you're enjoying. I know you've been working with Renzo Gracie and some of the other people like that. How is it going so far? Are you enjoying it? Are you having fun?
Yeah, I love it. It's definitely different from judo, and it's sort of a total 180 from everything I've done my whole life. I've basically mastered the judo realm, so now I'm starting all over in this new athletic endeavor, and it's exciting. I love every day I wake up excited to go work out, excited to go to the gym and learn new things and just kind of grow as an athlete and as a person. So I'm really enjoying it. I've dived head in, right into it, and I'm enjoying the journey, that's for sure. We'll see what happens in the end, but so far so good.
Yeah. Is it nice that, you don't have to have a time limit on this? I mean, you said as an athlete, of course, every athlete has a shelf life, but, no one's saying we need a decision in 6 months. We need a decision in 8 months. That you have the time to make that decision for yourself.
Oh, yeah. That is a big, for me, it was a big weight off my shoulders, just knowing that, okay, you have a career started, you can go ahead and start training. You're going to be able to do that and take your time and do it the right way. Because for me, I don't do anything half. Everything I do it with 100% dedication. And I want to be sure I'm really prepared and really ready for that day if I do ever step in the cage. So this is allowing me to have that sort of, space and to be able to make that decision in a smart, timely manner.
Yeah. I even heard a rumor. Now, you can tell me if this is true or not, but I heard a rumor that you may have even caught your manager in an armbar during a recent training session. Is this true? Did I hear this correctly?
Listen, I think that people underestimate the power of my armbar. I won all of my matches on the mat in Rio, and it's something that we really focus on at Pedro. So although I'm not a jiu-jitsu black belt, judo focuses a lot on the mat, and I think that people need to take that into consideration. But yeah, poor Ali, he had to suffer the consequences.
Now, I am curious because, you are in such a unique situation because, after the rise of Ronda Rousey, we can't ignore what she's done for this sport and what she did for the eyeballs on the women's division. Is it also part of the difference when you step in is that, she was a bronze medalist. It wasn't like she wasn't accomplished, but she was able to kind of, slip under the radar a little bit and then kind of rise to fame, and now she's the superstar that she is. You have to admit, day one you step on an MMA, step inside the cage of the ring, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on you. You're going to have people gunning for you in a weird way. I mean, that's got to make it it's got to make it a little different decision for you in terms of when you debut. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, it speaks volumes to me that I literally win the Olympics. I step off the mat, I hug my coach, and I go back to the back into the mix zone where all the reporters are there waiting, and I'm literally still dripping sweat. And the first question is, all right, are you going to MMA? So I know what I have ahead of me. I know that there are going to be a lot of eyeballs on me. I know that a lot of people are eager to see me in the cage, and I'm eager as well to see what I'm capable of. But I know, if anything, it just makes me that much more reserved. I want to make sure I'm 100% ready because there are, I'm used to having a target on my back. I've been the defending Olympic champ for 4 years now, so I know what that pressure feels like. But this is going to be a completely different setting, so I want to make sure I'm 100% prepared.
Yeah. Now, if you're comfortable talking about yourself, because that's what you have to do all the time. If there's one other subject that comes up second most often, it's got to be Ronda Rousey. And I understand you probably answered these questions 1,000 times before, but I am kind of curious. As somebody that knows Ronda, somebody kind of grew up in the sport with Ronda, are you excited to see her back on December 30th?
Definitely. I think the whole world is excited about it. It's been a while since we've seen her in action. So for me, I'm excited for her personally because I think that, we've all had losses. Everybody loses. Everybody has a defeat, and it can haunt you. I know from personal experience when I lose to a rival and I don't have an opportunity to fight them again for a while, it really just weighs on me. So for her to be able to go out and show the world that she is a fighter, she is, someone who can come back from defeat is going to be exciting and thrilling, and I think it's going to be one that not many people are going to miss.
Yeah. Do you expect, the question is, and no one seems to know this answer, but, very few people know Ronda better than the people who trained with her and actually worked with her and knew her. And I think at one point you're even roommates with her. What do you expect out of Ronda? Do you expect the Ronda of old? Do you expect an even better Ronda? What are you hoping for when you see her back in the cage?
It's been a while since we've been teammates and roommates, so I don't know how she's changed as a fighter or her mentality, but I can tell you that in the old days, if Ronda suffered a loss, she came back with a vengeance, and I'm expecting that. I think that she's going to come back. I think that she's going to want to prove a point to everybody. And, no one does underdog better than Ronda. She likes that feeling. She likes having to prove something to people. So I think we're gonna see a it's gonna be insane. I think it's gonna be real good.
Yeah, it's kind of weird you mention that because we haven't seen Ronda in the underdog role, and I think in a lot of ways, if you decide to do MMA, it's kind of weird because obviously I think in your first fight, no matter who you face, you're going to be the favorite. But this is kind of putting you back in that underdog role a little bit, right? Because this is something new. This is something different. I mean, it's got to be a little different feeling than stepping in the Olympics as the defending gold medalist. Now you are the new person. You know what I mean? It's got to be a different feeling for you.
Definitely, and I think, I know what it's like to be an underdog because I trained with people like Ronda my whole life, so I was constantly chasing that higher level and trying to be the absolute best and trying to be the big fish. And there's nothing more thrilling than that. I think Ronda and I have that in common. We're eager to please. You know what I mean? We just really want to prove to the world what we are capable of. And I think that comes from being a woman, and it comes from just being in a sport that's male-dominated, and we're used to people not expecting that of us. So we have to go out and prove it in a big, big way. And I'm looking forward to it. I think, for me, it's going to be a nice reprieve from always walking in and being the defending Olympic champion, Kayla Harrison. So it's going to be interesting to be stepping into that. It's going to be like a rebirth, I guess, in a way. I'm really excited. I know I've been saying that over and over again, but I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a new challenge, and I love fighting. So it's going to be, I miss that feeling of being the best in the world at what I do. So I'm already getting the itch. It's only been a couple months, but I'm already getting the itch.
I love it. And talk about an exciting end of the month. You got Ronda fighting on the 30th, and then the 31st, you have this crazy World Series of Fighting card, 3 title fights. I've been friends with Jake Shields for a lot of years. I cannot wait to see him fight John Fish, Justin Gaethje, and then you get to make your World Series of Fighting debut in a sense. I mean, this is going to be a crazy month for you.
It is a crazy month. It's been a crazy year, and we're going to finish it off with a bang.
I will say, before I let you go, Kayla, I did a lot of Olympics coverage for Fox Sports this year. The 2 people I was most excited to cover and most excited to write articles about this year, yourself and Kyle Snyder, who both won gold medals. So congratulations again. And thank you for taking the time. I cannot wait to see you do your thing on December 31st. And thank you for taking the time today. And I look forward to chatting again in the future.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Thank you, Damon. You should know how to pick winners, huh? Me and Kyle. That's a good pick.
It's the Ohio thing. So I'll close out on this, and I'll make sure, because I know you're an Ohio girl. I'm going to say it one last time. O-H?
Oh!
I love it. Thank you, Kayla. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Damon.
Bye-bye. A big thank you, of course, to Kayla Harrison. I think one day she will fight, and I think when she does, she's going to be a huge star. Ronda Rousey is short for this sport. Let's just be honest. She's on her way out. Even if she wins against Amanda Nunes, which I personally do not think she will do, if she wins that fight, what does she have left? 2-3 fights? Maybe. 2017? Maybe. Now, there are other women's fighters out there that could be stars, but we lost another one recently when Miesha Tate retired. So let's say Amanda Nunes beats Ronda Rousey. I think Ronda Rousey retires immediately after the fight. We need more stars. Chris Cyborg is a star. She's a 145-pounder. Guess who she could fight in 2 years, potentially? Kayla Harrison. Kayla Harrison is a star in the making. Judo, 2-time Olympic gold medalist, all the talent in the world. Beast. Just saying, it's a possibility. Can't live in the past forever. And if Ronda Rousey's gone, we got to build a new star. We got to find a new star. Guess what? Kayla Harrison could be it. Tons of potential. Tons of potential. But we'll see if she wants to fight. Like I said, not a guarantee. All right. With that said, we're going to get out of here today. I want to say a big thank you to all of our guests, Joseph Benavidez, Anthony Rumble Johnson, and Kayla Harrison for coming on the show. Next week, we're going to be talking to number one contender in the featherweight division, who is taking on Anthony Pettis in the main event from next weekend's card in Toronto, Max Holloway is going to join us on the show. So stay tuned for that next week. Obviously, we'll be previewing UFC 206. My buddy Loper is going to be back. We're going to be previewing that card as well as Matt Brown's fight. He's taking on Donald Cowboy Cerrone in the new co-main event for UFC 206. So stay tuned for that. And as always, I want to say, everyone, thank you for tuning in each and every week as you do for the Fight Society podcast. Make sure you check us out on SoundCloud. Make sure you check us out on iTunes. And we will see you guys in 1 week's time. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.